Hey guys, it's Linda. I am here talking about Mr. Khaya Dlanga. In fact, rather, conversating with him, speaking about a very important topic as we did yesterday with the two ladies. We're going to be talking about how he didn't have a father growing up. His father wasn't quite present in his life, and we're basically going to unpack that topic. We're also going to be unpacking so many of the amazing topics he has in this book. One that he addressed that's very personal to me is menartrash, and he's basically going to be unpacking it from a male's perspective. So this one is for the guy siblings. If you guys are out there and you feel like this show is for women, no, it's not. It's also for you guys. The show is your big sister. So we hope that you enjoy this segment because it's especially for guys today. Enjoy! Hey siblings, welcome back to Conversations with my big sister. This is literally the second episode with Touch HD. We're very, very excited to be joining the family. So today, siblings, I have such an amazing guy here with us. His name is Mr. Khaya Dlanga. He is so amazing in conversation. I really enjoy having conversations with him. He's literally one of those people where his minds are just so intriguing. Your mind is just so intriguing. Every time I sit down with you and I talk, and it's always just seconds of conversation, but it feels as though we had been talking for like hours. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for the invite.
Very excited to have you here with us, and I'm sure that the siblings are very excited to be hearing from you. We hope that you do open up your mind and open up your heart and are willing to share as honestly as possible everything you have.
But yeah, I'll do my best.
Your wisdom, your thoughts, we really would love to hear from you. I remember the last time we spoke, not the time you forgot my name, but the time
I did not forget your name.
But the time we were sitting at a restaurant. The time we were sitting at the restaurant and we spoke about the whole idea of, not having a father. I lost my parents when I was 3, so my dad, was not around. And so I felt as though for me as a woman, it was so hard for me to relate to men or even to relation with men, even just to have conversations with men. I wondered with you, not having a father, did it make it difficult for you to relate with women? Did it make it difficult for you to conversate with women? Simple things like that.
Well, I think for me, it's a little different because my grandfather was there. So.
Yes.
And he basically played that figure of authority all the time for me. So it was never an issue of my father is not there because my grandfather was playing a role of some kind, and I had some uncles as well. And because I was in a very close-knit community in the village where I grew up, so it didn't really feel that much. And so in terms of relating to women, it also never affected that because, my mom was there, my grandmother was there, my sister was there, my sisters, my aunt, and who's always got like 4 daughters. Yeah. So it was not difficult for me to relate at all. But and I don't know if it's also got to do with the fact that I do have a large part that is a bit extroverted as well. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. So, but it's not difficult for me to relate. To most people in any case. So,
where did you grow up? Where did you grow up, and when was that the period of time your grandfather was more involved in your life where you grew up?
Yes. So, because my father also passed away when I was, we found out that he'd passed away on my 6th birthday. Yeah. So. When he passed away, and I didn't have a relationship with him, and I think also you're too young, I think at the time, to realize that there is a relationship or there isn't one. And he was not around in any case, and so, but I was growing up in the village in the Eastern Cape, Mount Elief, in a village called Dukini, and my grandmother and my grandfather practically just raised me in those ages, and because my mom had to leave and go to work in East London in Tanzania because my dad had kind of vanished to Johannesburg,
and never came back.
And so I think in that respect, I had a good, I don't know, my grandfather just played a massive role. Because he was very strict about certain things. He had rules. A man cannot do that. A man must do that. This is what a man can and cannot do. And so I felt like he was whether it was wrong or right, the lessons, but I had some kind of guidance of what a man is supposed to be or what it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to know as well is, as you grow up and you turn 16 and you become a young man, was there never a moment where you felt very angry at your dad? In as much as you didn't have a relationship with him, and I know he left young and you never really had that moment of relating with him, but was there never a moment where you felt very angry at the fact that he left and he just never came back to pursue something with you?
No, because and it's strange because I never felt, and I think a big part of me never really felt that there was something missing.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't spend too much time thinking about it at that time, but I think what really helped me was the fact that I really did have these relationships, an uncle here, and I suppose my mother never really said bad things about him as well,
to protect you.
Yeah, probably, and other people who would also say like really good things about him, even though he disappeared. He'd gone and left. And I think that's probably partially the reason. But I also felt a big part of me that I was very fortunate that he died when I was that young, because I felt a lot of when I went to school, there were a lot of guys, not just, I'm saying guys, when I say guys I mean it's genderless, who because when the schools opened for black folk, and I went to the schools, and the black kids in those schools, so many of them were so bitter and upset at their fathers because their fathers were actually alive and around, but were not present in their lives. And so they had this sense of like profound bitterness. And I felt like, I wonder if I'd felt this way if my father had actually been alive, if I'd be as bitter as those people. And a part of me was like, and would he have been like their fathers?
Yeah.
And would I feel this horrible bitterness towards him as a result of his absence? And in many respects, I kept saying to myself, I think I'm luckier than these people who have their fathers around. Because who are around but are absolutely absent.
That's because that's the worst. Your dad exists.
But he's not even where he stays.
You know where he is. He even has a family where he is.
He's got a family where he is.
And he's present for those kids,
Absolutely.
but he's not there for you.
And literally I was like, and he's maybe just running around and gallivanting, and he's just not there for you.
That's the thing.
And I'm sure you'll see white kids there. They have their fathers
going beautiful family.
They're going to play sports and watching them play rugby or netball. But for you, it's never there.
$0.
Exactly.
What would you say to those kids? Because I feel like there's so many angry kids, and they look up to the wrong people. In as much as, like a lot of the time, I feel like a lot of young men would not have their fathers, but they'd know that their fathers are alive and they have other families. They then rebel, in a sense, and find another mentor, but that mentor is not of good influence. What would you, and they do that because of the fact that they're angry. What would you say to those people? Like, what would you say to those young siblings, especially the young men?
Wow, that's very difficult. But I do think if you've got to think about the consequences. I think it's difficult to think about the consequences of the choices that you're making while you're angry. And I think some of the worst decisions anybody can make is you making them when you're angry thinking you're punishing someone else who actually doesn't know you even exist.
That's true.
Half the time. So your dad is not around and you think you're being mad and you're punishing. And I think a lot of the time when people are angry and they do something, they think they are punishing this figure that is not present anyway. Maybe it's some kind of cry for attention that if I do something bad and I go to prison, then he's suddenly going to realize and think like, I'm alive, and then he's going to come to the rescue and be Superman and we'll have this great relationship, which never happens, because I think there is a bit of shame that the fathers have because they have vanished for so long.
How do they go back?
And then they think, you know what, actually they would rather remain cold towards those kids because they have a sneaking suspicion that if they try to create a relationship with them, these children will be bitter towards them anyway. So I'd rather be a cold ass.
Let me be known for that.
Rather than open up and allow this child in, because maybe they're going to start reminding me that like I was not around, and I was generally just a horrible father because I was not around.
Sure. I especially enjoyed what you said in terms of making decisions from emotions. And I don't even just think negative emotions, it's even with good emotions, whatever emotions, not making a decision or even decisions from those emotions. Because I think most of the time you end up making the wrong decisions. But then at the same time, I feel like that requires a level of discipline. And like when I think of discipline, that is such a difficult thing to do, and especially for young people, it's the hardest thing for them to do. And the discipline that I read about in your book was the 8-year celibacy. Now, how as a man were you able to be that disciplined? How were you able to keep yourself from engaging with another woman in that regard?
I always say that one of my saving graces in life is the fact that I'm a coward.
Yeah.
And I think, and I promise you, and I think that being a coward and being scared of things has saved me from a lot of things.
What would constitute being a coward?
For example, and my uncle, for example, uncle was, and I think it was my first year studying the AAA.
Okay.
Or second, I don't know. And my uncle was, I was in Cape Town and I was in Mdantsane, and I got a phone call from my aunt saying that my uncle wants me to come to Mdantsane immediately. And I was like, okay, they sent me money, and I got on the bus, the Greyhound, got on the bus. 18 hours later, I'm in Mdantsane.
Yeah.
And day one, my uncle says nothing. It's a Thursday. Day two, Saturday. Friday. My uncle says nothing.
Yeah.
Saturday, he still says nothing. I was like, why did I come here? And then on the fourth day, on the Sunday, everyone is in the TV room, and then he was a very gregarious character, larger than life, tells amazing stories, hilarious. People love him. Is this
the uncle with the satellite dish?
No, this is another uncle.
Okay.
That one was very quiet.
Okay.
That was a strong silent type.
That's so crazy. That is so crazy.
So he was gregarious, that kind of guy. And the next thing that happens, everyone leaves the TV room, so it's just me and him. And then he says, three words? I'm trying to, because it's closer.
Yeah.
Is it 3 words or is it 2 words? 3 words.
Okay.
He says, Kwedin, usebenza is a condom.
Sure.
And so when I went to see him, he was rake thin. I did not see, he was
God, that is so hectic.
Thin. So, and imagine this guy who was just this gregarious character, full of life, and you see this rake thin man, when he's walking, he is leaning, he has to lean against the wall, and he had a walking stick with him. And those are the 3 words he said. And then he got up, he walked out of the TV room, and he went to his bedroom. I was like, oh my God.
That is the scariest thing in my life.
2 weeks later, he was gone. And but also at the time, it's not like I wasn't trying to get laid.
Yeah.
You
were about that life at the time.
No, I wanted to.
Oh, okay. You hadn't started at the time?
I had started. So I'm saying now because I'd left high school.
Yeah.
And I was at the AAA college.
And
and I thought I was going to live my best life there. I thought I was going to be out here,
My goodness.
But because I didn't know how to approach random, no one's random, and just see a woman and start saying, hey, so what's up? And I didn't even know how you start the conversation. So I just sit there on the train and I'd read a book, and if a woman is looking at me, I'd quickly look look into my book.
No eye contact,
eye contact. In case she wants to have sex.
So funny. Those eyes. Oh, that's so funny.
So and then what happened after that was and then it became also a part of a religious reason.
Okay.
Where I was like, I'm not gonna do it until I get married.
Yeah.
But I do it now.
Yeah. Okay. So most of the influence behind it was your religious influence, but I think the biggest part was having to have seen your uncle in that state that he was in.
It was just shocking.
And you just never wanted to see yourself in that.
I was like, I don't want to see myself in this state. It was just that terrifying.
Sure. So like for me, what I loved was how much of a teachable spirit you had from a very, very young age. You were very inquisitive and very eager to learn. To the point that, like I mentioned earlier, your uncle with the DSTV, you'd visit him quite a lot. And that was a place.
So I had to, because my mom had with the 4 kids, she wasn't working.
Okay.
And we were going to these expensive schools. Like she couldn't take care of all of us. So when I was in grade 10, standard 8 in my day, I had to. So she got to spoke to that uncle of mine and said I should stay with him during from then the June holidays until my matric year.
Oh, okay.
So
it was the living with him that what it was.
Yeah.
And so living there, what I loved was your teachable spirit, how you used every single opportunity to learn as much as you could. You were exposed to the television and you started watching Days of Our Lives and you started watching WWE wrestling and you learned your words and many of the things that you know, most of the things that you've started to know today, it all began and it started there.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What is it that encouraged that whole teachable spirit? What is it that motivated you to be as eager as you were back then?
I think maybe it's a question I used to ask myself, but why?
Yeah.
So when I was like, why is everyone introduced this way? Like, they say from Austin, Texas. Yeah. Shawn Michaels, and then I wanted to know where, like,
what is that?
Where is it?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, it's a city in Texas, in a state of Texas, in the United States.
Yeah.
From Detroit, Michigan, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Yeah. And I'm like, what is it? It's a city. It's in a state called Michigan, and it's in the upper north of the United States.
Yeah.
So I would that's what I would look at my map just to know things, because I was hearing something.
Yes.
And I think I was just being curious, and I don't know why. I was just curious. I just said, I wanted to know things.
That is so interesting. And yes, sorry.
Yeah, and like even words, if I heard a word that I'd never heard before, then I'd be, what does that mean?
Yeah.
If I didn't know the word, I would try and figure out because of the context in which it is used.
What do you think our society today can do to motivate young people to be more inquisitive? Because I feel like a lot of our young people are very complacent and they enjoy just not being inquisitive or not being curious enough to want to explore things. What do you think we can do today as a society to encourage that?
I think the problem is that people are too concerned with being cool.
Yeah.
And so many people are preoccupied by like, let me be cool, and not knowing what the consequences of coolness could be.
Yeah.
And for me, I always think that actually being cool is knowing stuff.
Yeah.
Being cool is reading, being knowledgeable.
I believe in that as well.
And being able to get into any space and being able to have a conversation. And one of the reasons you can have a conversation with anybody at any point is because you have some knowledge.
Sure.
And when you have some knowledge, you become curious because you want to know more. If I meet someone who knows a lot more about something that I found out about, I'm going to ask them lots of questions. And I mean, my friends, Anele, her son, or Alake, for his first birthday, I bought him a book.
Okay.
I bought him a book, and I wrote a note there, something like, I know you can't read yet, but this is a book that you'll read, and I hope you read when you get older, because readers, nerds do well, and they also get laid later on in life.
That's a great thing to write in a kid's book, Khaya. Very nice.
So, and I think that like there's a long plan, and I think for me it's just knowing that if you know stuff, you're exposing yourself to a lot more information in the world, and what that does, it gives you a lot more opportunities. You get exposed to so many more things that you never thought were possible, simply because you know. And someone might initially see you and you have a discussion with them and they become dismissive of you, and then they become curious about you because of questions that you're asking them, or what you keep talking about, because they never expected that from you. And I cannot stress books enough. Reading, I cannot stress that enough.
Reading
is so important.
Any books,
and pick it up, magazine, pick it up. So for example, what I used to do all the time after school, so I'd get from school, I'd walk to, because I went to a school called Hudson Park in East London, and then I'd go to Vincent Park, walk there, and would have to leave our bags or school bags just outside, because I thought maybe they thought they would steal something. And I would go, so I think it was on a Monday, on the days that I wasn't doing sports. So I'd read the DC comics, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, you name it. There were so many, Galactica, and all of those things. And I just read, and then today I'm done with these ones. Then I go to the news section, where I'd go, and the following day I'd read Time Magazine, Newsweek, National Geographic. I'd read Scientific
More
American.
Of the serious stuff,
So I was always doing, and then when I got home, I'd read books. Not necessarily my schoolwork, but as books.
Any books, but not your schoolwork.
Not my schoolwork.
What I loved as well about your book was the short, like your chapters are very, very short. Like they're not long. There's a lot of like, even shorter, like a page. And then there's like also
half
like,
a page.
I loved that. I loved the inconsistency of that. It made it very natural and authentic to read. Was there a conscious decision behind that? Idea? Okay.
So the idea, honestly, was it started off when people kept saying to me, "Oh man, I love your stories." When I write something on Instagram, they're like, "Oh, I love that story. I wish you could." And I think maybe about 10 stories I've put on Instagram before, out of the like almost 100 stories in the book, was I realized that because so many people said I never read long things. And then I thought, there's something I could use here to attract people to read more. Because I felt that if I write these short stories, someone is going to find themselves halfway through the book without even knowing that they're already halfway through, even though they don't like reading. And I was literally...
That's brilliant.
I was literally going after the people who don't like to read. And then for those people who like to read, is for them to enjoy themselves as much as those people who don't like to.
That's amazing.
Because what I've heard from readers is that what they like is very fast-paced. They're like, it's very fast-paced, and they just want to go and read. Okay, flip. That is finished. I want to go into the next one, the next one.
And it's captivating as well. Like, where you end the stories, like, you don't even go deep into explaining. You say it, and then you end it. And then we're like,
I wanted more.
But now, we get so frustrated. So it's literally like Grey's Anatomy. Like, literally, when I was reading your book, it was like the emotions I get for Grey's Anatomy were the same emotions.
That is so
like
funny.
Happy, sad, happy, frustrated, sad, angry, everything at once. Literally, consistently, that's what was happening.
That is very interesting, because one of the things that I kept getting on social media was how people say, I'd read the first page and I'm laughing. And then I was reading page 3 and I'm crying. It's like, what happened?
Those were the train of emotions throughout your book. It's so bad. But the quote that I like, what you wrote in the book that I really, really loved was when you wrote about, even though women play such a strong role in our lives, patriarchal society continues to render them invisible and insignificant actors in the lives of men. When did you receive this revelation? When was it that you saw this for yourself and you experienced it for yourself and you realized it as a revelation?
I don't think it was like a moment. I think there's a series of discoveries and moments that I'd seen, but also for me, I think it's also just very, very obvious things at work, where you see that in the workplace, men are always in positions of power. Even at school, the principals were like men. Just society and people you are supposed to respect and revere and be afraid of were men. People with money, men, which didn't really make sense. And I think my mother was always defying that kind of sense, but I didn't know that's what she was doing, and I don't think she knew she was doing it. Or if she knew she was doing it, she was rebelling, I think, against what society was saying. For example, she made sure that I cooked. She made sure that I would knead the dough and I would bake bread. While at the same time make sure that I go and not mow the lawn, but chop the lawn with the garden shears and all of those things. And I'll never forget this one time when I've told the story many times, where she went to the village and she said she wanted to go to the next village, but on my grandfather's horse. And in this village, no one had ever seen a woman ride a horse. Ever. It was one of those unwritten rules that women don't ride horses.
Yeah.
And for example, my grandfather, when I was going to church, my grandmother would walk ahead like maybe 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
And then while she was, and then I'd brush the horse and saddle it for him,
get it ready,
and then he'd get on the horse, and then he'd and then follow, like much later, follow my grandmother to church. And my and then she said she wanted to ride a horse, and my grandfather was like, oh, okay. And then he made me prepare the horse for my mother, prepare the horse. And I was just shocked.
That is so interesting.
And I was like, because he was so like, a man can't do that, a woman. But he was allowing my mother to get on this horse, so that I don't think he knew that she could ride a horse. And the next thing, my mom was on the horse. She was going to the next village, and the entire village came to a standstill looking at this woman on a horse.
Sure.
So, and I think for me, those are the kinds of things that I've kind of noticed without knowing. But also, I think what Twitter has actually done for me quite a lot is it made me like, I throw some off-color jokes, and it's just a joke.
Yeah.
And not realizing that I am adding to patriarchy, and I am really adding fuel to but it's a joke. But maybe joke, but how would I like it if someone just say like a joke about black people? If a white person said a joke about black people that I did not appreciate. So I never thought about those things.
Yeah.
And then when I thought about it, I began to okay.
Yeah.
And then I just began to realize that and people sometimes would call me out on those things, and I feel like,
which is good as well, because then it's creating conversation for you to learn from.
That's if I'm willing to learn, I want to learn. Because a lot of the time, your instinct is to be defensive, to say like, how dare you? Like, I know better, because also it's a public platform. Yeah. And if someone is saying something to you, everybody
feel
can
embarrassed,
see you.
Yeah.
So feel and what is a natural human instinct? To be defensive.
Yeah.
And I think I used to kind of do that, and then I realized, no man, I'm not going to learn anything this way. So I became better at it. And that's why I also say that men don't really understand how sexist they truly are.
Yeah.
Even when they say that they are not.
Do you think then the hashtags that we came up as women, the men are trash hashtags and niggas ain't shit hashtags, to create that awareness, do you think it's good that we've created them, or are you against that idea, or how do you feel about that? Do you relate to it?
No, I think it's important.
Okay.
I think it's important for society and for men, hopefully, to learn what they're doing, because without speaking out, nothing's going to change. And if there are no consequences, again, like, nothing's going to change. So I strongly and firmly believe in those. But what I disagree and what I don't like is when men start making it personal. Yeah. Was like, I am not trash. Yeah. Or I am not this. No, we're saying the system is trash, and you're a man and you're part of it. That's what it means.
100%.
You're not being targeted directly. In fact, what makes you trash is the fact that you are saying you're making this about you. Exactly. Which then confirms the whole trashiness.
If the shoe fits.
Exactly. Yeah. So why do you feel so defensive about it?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have those kinds of movements.
And what does it mean to you personally?
Can
you relate to the concept of men are trash?
In what way?
In a way of like, are you able to relate it to other men? So when men, as you've mentioned, are very, very defensive with that hashtag, every time we use it, men become angry at us, and they're like, you're attacking us, and you're saying all men are trash. Yeah. But not all men are trash, Are you... Can you reconcile with that?
Yes, I can absolutely reconcile with that. When you're in your spaces with
other men, are you able to...
Completely. And I mean, I've had a debate with that with other men, where I've said what I've just said to you. I said, you are making this about you. And what's happening is that you are actually detracting from the actual issue, which is patriarchy, which is what's happening there now. Now, what happens when you debate and say, but I am not trash, now everyone stops having the conversation about the horrible things that men are doing to... covering this issue now, explaining, no, this is what it means, this is what it means. Whereas there's a far bigger issue there than you. Yeah. So that's how I feel about it. And what if someone says I'm trash, I'm like, well,
okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And what is it that encourages the spirit of entitlement in men? Because I mean, when we look at the news today, we have, you know, Pastor Omotoso having to have felt entitled to a woman, many other men, your Harvey Weinsteins being very entitled to women, having to want to offer them opportunity, but then they'd need something in return. You wrote about it in your book. And so how do you feel that spirit of entitlement? Where do you think it comes from?
Well, it comes from just men getting out with it from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I imagine in school, someone would hit a girl and then it's fine, nothing happens to you. Maybe they force themselves on a woman, on a girl. Maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
And nothing happens to that. And they hear something's happened to somebody and nothing happened to them. And I think it's a series of events in someone's life where you're just constantly getting away with stuff.
Yeah.
And that reaffirms their notion, the idea that women are actually second-class citizens.
Yeah.
And therefore, nothing will happen to me even if I get caught or I do something. And it also becomes a sense of entitlement. Yeah. The fact that, well, this is how things are. Yeah. And this is how it's supposed to be because everybody I've known, this is how they do it. And I always talk about the fact that, you know how guys will say that they're like, okay, when they want to have a meeting, you ask something from a guy and then he says, oh, let's have a meeting, like let's meet at 7 in the evening. He's never going to ask a guy to be meeting him at 7. He's not in fact, he might not even want to be meeting the guy.
Exactly.
He will organize a thing over the phone, on email, and it's sorted. But then the next thing, now let's have dinner, and then he's calling you, okay, sweetie, what do you think? He's not gonna call a guy sweetie, so if you won't do the thing to a guy, don't do it to a woman.
Yes.
They don't. So I think they're just very simple rules that have the same level of respect that you will, in professionalism, especially let's say with work. Yeah. And Amatoso was not calling boys over to his place. He wasn't.
All women.
It was always women because and under the guise of like having a choir, but there were no boys there
at all.
Yeah, there were no boys who were like, okay, because boys sing too. But why were they not being invited to the place? So I just think that there is a lot wrong, I think, in society that just still needs to be worked out and sorted out.
And do you think in the middle of all of this that's happening in society, are we disregarding the rights of men? Because I know that right now there's a lot of men retaliating as well and saying we also have rights. And a lot of the time, women will say we've raped them, but we haven't. Do you think that the rise of that? Well,
I think that the chances, the occasions where women have lied and said that men have raped them are probably so far less than the actual incidents of men actually raping women. And not only on top of that, there are so many more women who would never even talk about it, never even report it. So for me, I think that is just it's a non-issue, it's a non-starter because the numbers completely outweigh. Again, it's men taking away from the conversation and making it about themselves, as opposed to, I think, I wish I could remember who said this, a quote that runs, you see all the time, where they say that when you have always oppressed someone, equality suddenly feels like inequality.
Sure.
And I think that it feels like oppression. And now, when women are being treated equally, it seems like, okay, something's being taken away from men. Nothing is being taken away from men. Men are still as powerful as ever. Men still hold the most senior positions in any organization around the world.
Yes.
And so men being ill-treated and disempowered and having no rights is a lot of bullcrap. It's just not true.
Sure. So just to wrap up everything, I just wanted to know from you, what would you say to your 16-year-old self? Looking back today, looking back to your 16-year-old self, what is it that you would say?
I would say carry on reading.
Okay.
Remain curious. Do the things that you really enjoy doing.
Sure.
As many of them as you can.
Even if it doesn't pay you enough money.
Even if it doesn't pay, because eventually one of them is going to be the one thing that is your life's work.
Sure.
As opposed to just doing one thing. Just do as many things you like doing. And I'll never forget reading something that's there's a Fortune magazine columnist that I used to read all the time, Stanley Bing, and he wrote this an advice column to this fictitious 14-year-old girl. And one of the points in it, he said that if you like doing something, do it a lot.
Sure.
Eventually someone will pay you for it.
Wow.
So,
but to believe that, like, it's so hard for kids to believe that.
I know, but the thing is, if you enjoy it, just do it. Don't think that it's about the money and all of that. If you like painting, you paint, you know, and you like writing, write. If you like making videos, make them. If you like singing, sing.
Sure.
And it's literally that simple. If you like solving mathematical equations, solve them. And find books that teach you about new problems to solve. And you just keep doing it, and eventually you like programming, teach yourself programming. And I just think that's just literally just what you gotta do. It's that simple. Is it that easy? I don't know if it's that easy, but I think as a kid, if you just give yourself time, because you have so much time in your hands. I know there's homework and all of that thing, but at the end of the day, you actually have a lot of time in your hands. And with that time, there's so much stuff you can do. Bill Gates became a billionaire because he liked programming. And he liked computers. And was spending a lot of time with computers. And when other kids are doing other things. So I just think that's like, I think you almost have to ask yourself, like, do I want to matter later on in life? And in what way? And not everyone is going to be a rapper. So everybody thinks that, okay, the easiest way to be cool is to be a rapper. But out of all the musicians in the world that everybody know, it's like 4% of them who make it. And 4% of them become rich. And the rest are just, okay. You know, so just try and be excellent in whatever it is that you're doing.
Sure, that's so good. And also, what would you say to your dad? If your dad was still alive and he was here and he could hear you speak right now, what is it that you've always felt you've always wanted to say to your father?
I think I would probably say that he should forgive himself.
Sure.
Because he left and he probably felt really guilty about it. And because genuinely everyone who talks about him always talks about what a decent human being, what a great human being he was. And I suspect that he beat himself up quite a lot, I think, over that. And I think I'll just say, just forgive yourself, because in order for your life to be better and to make my life and everyone else's life better is if you forgive yourself, because you know, I forgave you a long time ago, so do the same for yourself.
That's very good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
But before you go, I just remembered one final question. You had a female mentor. That was your first and your only mentor. Why was it a woman? Why is it that it wasn't a man? Did you gravitate more to a woman?
I think because I had a very good relationship with her as well, and we had similar interests as well. I think that's probably why I gravitated towards her.
Okay.
And the mentorship was it just seemed natural, I think, for me, because of what an easy relationship we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we should look for in mentors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
someone you can relate to.
And the thing is, actually, was an older white woman, but I could relate to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Abuti Khaya. We are so grateful for your book. Your book is amazing. And I hope you siblings can get it. Please get it at Exclusive Books. It's only literally 185. Just save for a couple of months, you can get it. And read it. It's amazing. It's fun. It's basically Grey's Anatomy in a book in terms of emotions. So thanks for listening up, guys. We're going to check you out later. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you have anything else you'd like for us to discuss, anyone else you'd like for us to bring into studio to speak with and conversate with, let us know. Don't forget to let us know. We love you. We will be here for you. And also, we also would love to have more controversial conversations. So if you have anything else you'd like for us to talk about that is controversial, let us know. We're here for that.